The world's oceans are what make life possible on our planet. While we often think of the oceans as one big ecosystem, it's more accurate to think of them as a web of more localized subsystems that are loosely interdependent. But like all systems, the more interconnected it is, the more resilient it becomes. Whales, through their epically long migrations and insane feeding patterns, are one of the main forces interweaving these diverse ecosystems together. They move nutrients between different regions, and in doing so, promote an abundance of phytoplankton, which are the base of the entire oceanic ecosystem and a vital player in the Earth's carbon sequestration. Humans have hunted whales since prehistoric times, but industrial whaling truly began in the 1800s and continues to this day. The very first regulations weren't even put in place until 1986 with the International Whaling Moratorium. The whaling industry has decimated whale populations throughout the ocean. And while populations are beginning to recover slowly, given the impending climate catastrophe, we need whales now more than ever. There are something like 90 different species of whales, so instead of doing a deep dive on each one, this video will approach whales from the more abstract perspective of their role in ocean ecosystems. Broadly speaking, there are two categories of whales, baleen and toothed. Baleen whales, like humpbacks and blue whales, don't have teeth, but instead have mouths full of, baleen. These are huge comb-like structures that they use to catch krill, a tiny shrimp-like animal found throughout the ocean, but most abundantly in the cold oceans of the Arctic and Antarctic. And while not all baleen whales migrate, most do, feeding in the cold far north and south during the warmer months, and then traveling to warmer waters near the equator during colder months to breed. For example, humpback whales feast throughout the summer off the coast of Alaska and then migrate all the way down the Pacific coast of North America to the Gulf of California for breeding. Interestingly, during migration and breeding, they rarely feed and live almost entirely off the fat stores or blubber they accumulate over the summer. Toothed whales, on the other hand, are much more active hunters. This group of whales encompasses animals like dolphins, orcas, and sperm whales. The sperm whale is particularly cool. They can dive down to almost 10,000 feet deep to hunt squid and deep ocean fish, although they usually only dive to around 3,000 to 6,000 feet. To be able to pull off such insanely deep dives, they often need to be underwater for over an hour and a half. Notably, they also have one of the most expansive ranges of any oceanic animal. The only oceans they don't inhabit are the farthest reaches of the Arctic and Antarctic oceans. Although there is quite a bit of variance between species, whale lifespans are usually in the range of 40 to 100 years. Baleen whale species tend to live longer than toothed species. The longest living baleen whale is the bowhead whale, which can live to be up to 200 years old. The longest living toothed whale is the sperm whale at 60 to 80 years. This is what makes recovering whale populations so difficult. Their lifespan and reproductive cycle simply takes a long time. Okay, so obviously whales are amazing animals, but what makes them so important to our oceans and our planet? To answer that question, we first need to understand the ocean food web and microscopic organisms known as phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is a broad term for a wide variety of microorganisms, although most are single-celled plants that use photosynthesis to convert sunlight into energy. Just like plants on land, they require CO2 and sunlight, and key nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and iron. These tiny organisms are the foundation for life on our planet, and usually pop up in what are known as phytoplankton blooms. When conditions are just right, their populations explode in certain areas. These blooms are the foundation of the entire oceanic food web and account for 30 to 40% of the carbon sequestered on the planet every year. They sequester carbon by integrating it into their bodies much like trees do. And when I'm saying that phytoplankton blooms can be huge, I'm not exaggerating. take a look at these images of phytoplankton blooms as seen from space. And while most of the phytoplankton are eaten or decompose on the surface of the ocean, a not insignificant amount of them sink to the bottom of the ocean, taking the carbon with them forever. So how do whales promote and stimulate phytoplankton blooms? Well, it's hard to say this elegantly, so I won't. They poop. And pee. A lot. All over. And it turns out that their waste is rich in the exact nutrients that are critical for phytoplankton blooms. The role whales play in moving nutrients around the ocean is different depending on the species. Whales that dive deep in search of food form part of what is known as the whale pump. Here, whales, such as sperm whales, dive down to the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean to feed on squid and bring all the resulting nutrients to the surface, where phytoplankton then bloom. Whales that perform long migrations create what is known as the whale conveyor belt, moving nutrients from the colder, nutrient-rich northern waters to the much less nutrient-rich tropics. In both instances, whales feed in one ecosystem to then provide nutrients to another, resulting in phytoplankton blooms that then feed all of the ocean life. Now, obviously whales aren't the only mechanism in the ocean providing nutrients to phytoplankton, but they will be a key ally in the fight to sequester carbon and promote healthy oceans teeming with life. Humans have hunted whales for thousands and thousands of years. Their size and frequent visits to the surface for air make them obvious targets. But why did we hunt down whales on an industrial scale? The answer is simple. Whale oil was needed for fueling lamps and lubricating industrial machines. Eventually, alternatives began to reduce the demand for whale oil. But the whaling industry continued unchecked through both world wars and up until the International Whaling Moratorium of 1986, which began to regulate the industry and place catch limits. That means that while your mom was walking around with leg warmers and a perm, humanity was still deciding whether there should be any limits or any oversight whatsoever on harpooning a whale. Today, Japan, Norway, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands are the last major countries still whaling. Since the year 1900, an estimated 3.3 million whales have been killed. Before industrial whaling began in the 1800s, it's estimated that there were around 5 million whales on the planet. Today, total whale populations are estimated around 1.3 million. Whales are particularly easy to forget for humanity because we don't exactly share a backyard with them. Nonetheless, our planet feels their absence. We pushed whales, the force that sustains the foundation of our oceans, to the edge of extinction. And now, as we face our own existential threat in the form of climate change, we need them now more than ever. Whales, through their feeding patterns, cycle the nutrients necessary for phytoplankton blooms to happen. And since phytoplankton activity is the single largest carbon sink on the planet, any efforts we can make to increase their abundance will have huge effects. According to studies, even a 1% increase in phytoplankton productivity would be equivalent to the sudden appearance of 2 billion mature trees. Climate change is complicated. We certainly have produced a ton of greenhouse gases, but we also kneecapped the major biological engines sequestering carbon and keeping our planet in balance. I think that when we think about climate change, our most flawed assumption is that we're alone in this fight. All the systems on Earth are adapted specifically for making the planet resilient, especially the ones in our oceans. We need to enlist every possible ally in our effort, from the biggest to the smallest. In this particular case, it means we really just have to stop killing whales. And while we're at it, protect them by expanding marine sanctuaries and regulating ship speeds and sonar noise. We should be making every effort possible and every sacrifice necessary to recover whale populations, if not for the whale's sake, for our own.